Hell yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
All right. How's it going, everybody? Happy Friday. We're live. The Joravsky show is just moments away. But before we do this, let's thank the following unions for sponsoring this podcast. Unions like the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9. They are sponsors. Yes, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, are sponsors as well. And you know what? Our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor, they're sponsors. How cool is that? If you're listening to this and you own a business or you're a bigwig at a union and you want to sponsor the Joravsky show, bring it. Come on, let's do it. We'd love to sponsor you. BennyJShow@gmail.com. BENNY, the letter J, show @gmail.com. And to hear more from the artist you just heard there, Michael Girardi, he made songs for the Joravsky show. Look for Mike Girardi Bandcamp, Gerardi Bandcamp, and you'll have about like 10 songs from Michael Girardi. You can download them and play them as much as you want. All right, Ben, you have a song of the day, and it does come from Frank. Your song of the day, Rocket Man by Elton John.
Oh, Rocket Man, Elton John, Ellie as we call him. Hold on, we have a sip of water.
Okay.
Here we go. Rocket Man is not to be confused with Space Oddity by David Bowie. Rocket Man, whoa, Rocket Man. Oh, I think I will. Oh, Rocket Man. Something else happens. Rocket Man.
Yeah. And that is not to be confused with actual singing. Good Lord.
I do like Rocket Man. When it comes on the radio, Frank, I'm like, Rocket Man. One time I pulled up at a stoplight, and it wasn't Rocket Man. It was the other one. This is my song, and I give it to you, or whatever it's called. My gift is whatever. You all know what it is. And I'm singing it, like pouring out my heart. I look up, and some lady looking at me. Oh, boy, that was embarrassing. Anyway, Rocket Man, one of my greatest hits, D. Rocket Man.
The Joravsky show starts now.
All right.
It is Friday, October 16th, and live from my apartment in his attic, this is the Joravsky show. Today on the program, it's another Rummana Rundown with Chicago Sun-Times editor, Rummana Hussain. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Yeah, hello everybody, Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Mad Town, Shy Town Friday. And here's why. 20 days left to go. Repeat, 20 days left to go until the election showdown. I think it's 20 days. It could be 19. I don't know. I've lost track.
It's actually 18.
Oh, my God. I really lost track.
Yeah, there went that intro.
We're going to redo that for the podcast. Anyway, everybody around me, people are voting already. Early voting, they call it. They could have had this election 4 years ago. People were ready to vote then. The anti-Trump crowd, man, they were ready to vote him out of office even before he got sworn in. I can tell you right now, if they had called an election February 1st, 2017, there have been long lines of people ready to vote him out. Great column in today's Bright One, Chicago Sun-Times, home delivered as always by Mark Brown. The Sun-Times is in pink. It's sort of a Sun-Times pages are in pink in recognition of National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I'm all for that. And but to tell you something, it's hard reading a newspaper in pink, D. Okay, now every millennial in Chicago is going, told you. That's why I read it online. Told ya. They didn't put it in pink online. Anyway, excellent column by Mark Brown. Pretty funny stuff. Mark Brown, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. And he talks about how he lined up at his polling place in Uptown to vote. He's dutiful. He's going to go out and vote.
I'm going to hit that Cricket Hill about, 40 times, and then I'm going to go vote.
Come on now. Aren't we supposed to forget that, D? Aren't we supposed to forget that Mark Brown made that preposterous claim that he ran up Cricket Hill 15 times? No one believes him.
I mean, that was months ago, 15 times. I'm sure he's up to 30.
Yes, he's up to 30 by now. Right. In fact, you hear that sound? That's Mark going up the hill. Now here's the other sound. That's Mark going down the hill. Anyway, forget his run. We're not talking about Mark Brown as athlete, okay? We're talking Mark Brown as outstanding columnist. I thought it was a funny column about how he waited 2 hours. He starts with this. It took me 2 hours and 7 minutes to early vote this week at Truman College in Uptown, only 5 minutes of which involved actually filling out the ballot. That's pretty funny, but he's fast. 5 minutes? I'm like so slow. I'm like, I gotta make sure. Okay, this kid, gotta make sure I voted for Joey. Got it, and I like double check it. That's kind of this weird part of me, D. You know, always like I'm afraid I left the door open. Hold on, let me check the door. No, it's closed. Bit of a germaphobe as well. I got some issues, man. So I'm like, I'm not 5 minutes in and out, Mark Brown. I'm like, good. Make sure I voted for Joey. Then I got to make sure I voted for Kim Fox. Don't want to vote for that whacked out dude, Pat O'Brien. Got to make sure I vote yes on the fair tax. Got to vote for Dickie D, Dick Durbin. You know what I'm saying, D?
And you got people waiting behind you. Hey, douchebag, hurry up. Just vote. Pick one.
You're right. Although I'm going to be voting on the election day. My prediction would be short lines on election day, D. That's my prediction. Could be wrong. In fact, we could miss the show on election day because you and I are both waiting in a line. The show may be late that day, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll bring my board. I'll bring my board to the election booth.
Oh, my God.
Plug it in. I'm here at the election booth.
That is a great idea. We're doing live. Live from Irving Park Road, where I'm voting. With me is Precinct Captain Billy Bob. I'm not on the best of relations with the 47th Ward Democrats. Just saying that. I got into a big argument with a couple of their precinct workers.
You and Billy Bob, boys, had that beef for so long.
Yeah, well, they loved Rahm. Oh, God, did they love Rahm. Anyway, all right. Going back to Mark Brown's very funny column today. So it took me 2 hours and 7 minutes to early vote this week at Truman College in Uptown, only 5 minutes of which involved actually filling out the ballot. The rest of the time was spent waiting outdoors in a long line that moved at a glacial pace, followed by a shorter wait indoors. Yes, this is why I should have taken the advice to vote by mail, but I wasn't ready to do that. And only my wife gets to say, quote, I told you so, unquote, because she really did tell me so, and the rest of you were just thinking it. That's good stuff, man. Mark Brown, that was funny. That made me chuckle. Because there's always somebody, I told you so. That's the thing. People don't want to feel sorry for you. You know, so you have a complaint, and they're like, you can just see their brains working. Like, there's a lot of stuff going wrong in the world. Do I want to feel sorry for this guy? No, I don't want to feel. So then they go, well, you should have known. Or if you had looked on the internet, you would have seen. And that's, I told you. I've been known to do I told you so. Anyway. There's all kinds of reasons why people are waiting in lines throughout the country. And people are really fired up to vote. But in Chicago, the excuse is there's really no good excuse. According to Mark Brown, at his particular polling place, 3 out of 9 machines were broken. Now, you can't blame that on Trump, ladies and gentlemen. He had nothing to do with that. And here's the funny thing. I talk about this on the show all the time. Republicans, Donnie Trump, right-wingers, MAGA hat wearers, Amy Coney Barrett, they're all into playing the victim card. They all want to pretend like they're being picked on. Johnny Cass's column today was hilarious. Like, they're picking on Donald Trump. Oh, they're picking on me. Always crying and whining. But in reality, their best friends are the people who are against them, like the Democrats who run the city of Chicago. 3 out of 9 are broken? How could that they just started the election. You know, you figure, okay, broke down for use. You know what I'm saying? They like, oh, I'm exhausted. It's like Mark Brown going up that hill for the 40th time is exhausted, right? So you can understand if like a month in, the voting booths, the voting machines are broken. But we just started. How can you already start? Oh, they're already broken. Man, Chicago, don't get me started on Chicago Democrats. It's like they want to lose. Anyway, I'm going to be cool and calm. And I'm moving on to the other great column in today's newspaper. Some of my liberal friends are starting to panic. They're getting nervous. Case in point, Eric Zorn. good friend of the show, Eric Zorn.
Easy.
Easy. That's what we call him on this show, Easy. Eric Zorn, for years, he held down the liberal front at the Chicago Tribune. Man, they should give him like battle pay for that. Can you imagine Christmas parties at the Tribune office? Poor Eric Zorn, surrounded by all those right wingers, complaining. Yeah, poor Eric, man. No wonder he was drinking the eggnog. Let me get at that eggnog.
I'm sure he gets along with his colleagues now.
I didn't say he didn't get along with them. I'm just saying it'd be a pain in the neck to have to deal with them. That's all I'm saying. Said he'd get along with them. Didn't say that at all. That's fake news. Anyway, here's the headline in the Tribune on Eric Zorn's column. Flashback. Biden's commanding lead in the polls mirrors Clinton's phantom lead in 2016. Translation, I'm scared. I'm very scared. I'm going to read you the takeaway, Eric's takeaway. You can give Eric credit. He sifted through all these polls in 2020 and then compared them to the polls in 2016. Good God, the guy must have been up all night reading polls. Here's the big takeaway, D. Quote, maybe pollsters in 2016 were using outdated, misleading survey methodologies. Maybe a significant number of respondents lied to them because they were embarrassed to admit their support for the vulgar, mendacious Trump. Maybe a decisive number of Clinton backers didn't bother to vote because, like me, they thought her victory was secure. Maybe the news on October 28, 2016 that the FBI was once again looking into the issue of Clinton's emails changed some minds, energized Trump supporters, and depressed Clinton voters. Who knows? What we do know is that if you compare the mid-October polling averages in key states in 2016 with the election results some 3 weeks later, you see Trump move the gap between himself and Clinton in his favor across the board. It boils down to this. I'm scared. I'm very scared. I've had people on the show who look at the polls and draw the opposite conclusion. Monroe Anderson, Dan Cohen. I urge everybody to check out the interview I did with him. What was that, Tuesday, D? Pollster
Yes.
Danny C., Dan Cohen. And, of course, David Ferris, who was on the show yesterday. They take a look at the polls and draw different conclusions. But, you know, the reality is this. Monroe Anderson, Dan Cohen, David Ferris, Easy Eric Zorn. None of them know. Absolutely no one knows how undecided voters in Michigan are going to go. I can't believe there's any undecided voters up there at all. My guess is, I'm leaning a little toward Eric, that they're hiding their affection for Trump because they know there's something to be ashamed of. Like, even now, they realize, this guy. I mean, they take a look, like last night, at that so-called, well, it wasn't a debate, it was a town hall. He was out of his mind, as always. And they're like, I can't vote for him. Or at least I can't let anybody know I vote for him. But no one knows. No one knows how this thing is going to break. It's just gut feelings you have. And all of us are trying to not to freak out. Some of us make it through the day. And then here comes Eric, and we're all like, ah! I could just see all my liberal friends passing this column around. Look at this. No. By the way, I'm convinced. I'm convinced that Nate Cohen, who is the pollster writer for the New York Times, realizes that the more he frightens Democrats, the more hits he gets. So Nate Cohen has been championing this theme that Eric makes. In fact, Nate Cohen puts into his columns, like if the polls today are like the polls were 4 years ago, then, Trump's doing a lot better. But then he has this other thing. If the polls today are like the polls in 2012, then Biden would do better because apparently there was an underrepresentation for Barack Obama in 2012, a point that none of us remember because we weren't freaking out over the election of Barack Obama. Most of us, I assume Eric's in the same category, supported Barack Obama. In fact, I know Eric's in that category. So, so yes, there's some validity to that. But the reality is that nobody knows. So I know that my liberal friends are passing around Eric Zorn's column. They're all freaking out. They're all scared. And then, in a way, I welcome it. I've said this before. I'll say it again. If that little bit of terrifying news from Eric Zorn motivates you, if that horrific blast from the past is an inspiration, then yes, take it. Get out there and write a postcard and make a call or contribute money or go knock on doors. Well, nobody's knocking on doors anymore, but you get the very idea. Or you know what? At the very least, stand in line to vote against Trump. 2 hours if necessary. 4 hours if necessary. In Chicago, what the hell? They'll help you.
Yeah, break this bottle.
Chicago. Oh, there's an election going on? Wait a minute, hold on. We have a big election going on? Everybody's freaking out? Oh, maybe it'd be a good idea to have all 9 voting machines working. Chicago, they open up the polling. The thing's been open for a day and already 3 machines are broken.
All right, boss, we're all ready. We're good to go. Hey, wait, hold on. Bad news. It's broken.
Let's open the doors anyway. Good news, ladies and gentlemen. They always have these good news. The doors opened and people lined up to vote. Yeah, but 3 of the machines were broken. Poor Mark Brown's in line for 2 hours plus.
Sorry, boss, I dropped it.
Oh my God. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if being scared is what motivates you to action, then be scared. Be very scared. We got a great show today, everybody. Rummana Hussain is going to be, and I'll tell you what, Rummana's not scared. Oh no.
Well, we're going to find out.
She's not. Well, she's right now taking that hill. She's going to show Mark Brown how to run that hill. So she's going to do 50 laps up that hill. How about that, D? 50
Whoa.
She's going to win. She's going to show Mark Brown how to take. I used to run that hill, D, back in the day. You know that, don't you? I used to take cricket.
Hey, well, you got to 5 or 6 times, right? 8 on a good day?
There was a time in the 90s. There was a time. That's a James Brown song. There was a time in the 90s when I was doing 10 hills.
Oh.
Not the 15 that Mark Brown claims to do, but anyway, enough on that. As Mark Brown and Rummana Hussain would tell you, it's time to get down to business. It's time for the news with the young man from Alton that everyone fondly calls Dr. D.
Thanks, buddy. It's Dennis. Before we find out what's happening in Chicago and/or Illinois for the 4th and final time this week, we need to plug our Benny J bonus interviews dropping Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, and mostly wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Here's the lineup. Saturday, an awesome interview, and one that I mistakenly said would be available for download on Thursday night. My apologies. I'm a habitual Thursday night interview teaser, Ben. My bad. But it will be available this Saturday morning, tomorrow. It's with our city council beat reporter, Dave Glowatz. He gave us a recap on the October 7th Chicago City Council meeting.
Yeah, I love these interviews, and I know I'm not alone. See, I spend so much of my time obsessed with national politics. It's rare that I take the deep dive into local politics, which is I spent 30 years doing. And so Dave, I welcome these interviews with Dave because he sifts through the meetings, he gets the relevant clips to play, and then we just riff on it. And it's amazing. Wait, hold on. Allow the brown line to pass.
Oh.
Yeah. There we go. The brown line is passed. It's amazing how little, how so much is the same, I should say. Here we are in the middle of a pandemic. Here we are trying to oust this tyrannical lunatic and Donald John Trump. Here we are trying to pass a fair tax so we can adequately find ways to fund our government. So we don't go broke or tax middle class and working class and poor people out of existence. Here we are, all these struggles, and the city council is still the city council. It's it really is one step removed from a high school cafeteria where there's the kids that are in with the teacher, in this case, teacher being Lori Lightfoot, and then there's the kids who are kind of rebellious or rambunctious. In this case, Raymond Lopez of all people. And then there's the kids who are in with the teacher, don't like the kids who are rebellious, and they start picking at each other. Only in the city council, they hide their rancor behind their they cloak it like these principles. They try to find principles that kind of adequately state why they just don't like each other. Like principles like greater representation for the legislative branch or more efficiency in a city. So shut up and sit down. And it's delightful stuff. And, it's important stuff. It determines how much we all pay in taxes, et cetera, and how our money is distributed. But it's relatively saner than the madness going on in Washington. So I welcome it. And Dave Glowacz does a great job. And there's like I think he's got 5 clips that he played, D, that we riffed on. My recollection is correct. 5, maybe 6. Anyway, good stuff, Dave Glowacz.
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit is what I think.
By the way, D, I don't think this is part of your news for today. I don't think it is. We had a pre-show meeting, but it was a while ago, and things may have changed. So I could be stepping on your toes right now. But there was an article in the Sun-Times that I was able to read, despite the pink color of the page, about the mayor, it's a PR guy, building on her brand. Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't put it in the news, though. Yeah, so go ahead. Tell us about it.
Yeah, no, it's just listening to that exchange, which we only know because someone leaked it, at a meeting that shouldn't have happened because it was violating the Open Meeting Act. You love Chicago, ladies and gentlemen. This is the middle of a pandemic. Here's what we're going to do. We have rules governing when the public's right to know about our meetings. We're just going to ignore all those rules, have a meeting, and then 45 people, aldermen, showed up for this virtual meeting. And then the mayor's people were like, well, it wasn't a real city council meeting because they were acting more as community reps. Then they get these lawyers to come up with anything. Anyway, in that meeting, there was that exchange between Raylo and Lori Lightfoot, which I find delightful, D, because it's sort of like just exposes how Chicago works and what they think about each other. And of course, it's the last thing they're going to promote. But they're trying to, as they try to rebrand Chicago, that's what the article is about, rebranding Chicago. God, I have lived through at least 3 rebrandings of Chicago. Chicago's always trying to, because Chicago it's got this like self-consciousness. It doesn't like who it is. Chicago is a segregated, racist town where people have like temper tantrums. Remember the judge? Remember the Columbus statue fight in the West Side Park, D? Where the judge, a retired judge who's now, I think he's got a business where he resolves conflict resolution and mediation. He got mad at some hippie protester and threw a punch at the guy. That's Chicago. That is like the quintessential Chicago. Nobody likes anybody else. They all live in their little tribes. Like you go to a neighborhood, they go, what neighborhood are you from? Where are you from? What's your parish? That's Chicago. Everybody hates everybody else. But they're always rebranding it. So after council wars in the 80s, when Chicago elected a black man as its mayor, white people freaked out and revolted, tried to sabotage government. They felt the need to rebrand Chicago. Everybody gets along in Chicago. Remember they put the cows, this is before your time, D. You were like 10. The millennials don't know what I'm talking about. They actually thought a good way to rebrand Chicago, its image, they put these cows out. I'm not kidding. Like not literal cows, but statues of cows out. Oh. Everybody's, oh God, what a nice city we are.
Cows.
Yeah.
I love this place.
And flowers. That was Daley's thing. We're going to put flowers in the middle of the road, and that way it'll be nice, okay? It'll look nice. Everybody will forget how segregated we are and racist we are.
Cows.
Cows, dude, I'm not making that up. I know you millennials are out there going, no way. You're making that. I'm telling you. They rebranded Chicago by and they call it Cows and Parade. Tribune must have written 1 billion stories about Cows and Parade. Oh my God, the Tribune. I've been reading it for all these years, D. Anyway, they're always rebranding. Then Rahm rebranded. As soon as Rahm got in office.
Horses. He did horses. No, I don't know.
No, Rahm's thing was we're going to be a national city. Rahm's thing, he sat Karen Lewis down. He just got elected. He told her, here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell those little commies in your union to shut up and take a pay cut and shut up while we close public schools and give contracts to my pals in the charter industry? And you're going to tell them to like it. That's what he told her in private. And in public, he's like, and we're going to rebrand Chicago. We're going to make it an international city. We have NATO meeting here. What a joke. But it was like 3 days. They had like troops in Chicago. Hippies fighting the police. Police beating up hippies. Nobody, it was like, are you kidding? It's the same old Chicago. So they always rebrand. Now they're going to rebrand Chicago along the lines of the mayor, D. That's what they're going to do. Everybody loves the memes, you know. We're going to try to figure out a way to connect Lori to Chicago. Good luck with that rebranding. I'm sure if I live long enough, I'll live through a fourth rebranding of Chicago.
So back to that Saturday interview. You should download it at both Chicago. So you went on a rant there, sir. At both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. Dave Glowatz with the City Council synopsis. On to our Sunday bonus. He's a gardening guru with a progressive edge. He's host of the Mike Novak Show. Mike Novak. Ben, we're going to be talking to him after today's show. What do you plan on talking with about with
environmental news? Michael T. Novak.
Is that his middle name starts with a T?
No, just
no. I like that though. That sounds good. That sounds good.
Michael Thomas Novak.
That sounds good.
Fleet News. Novak's hilarious, ladies and gentlemen. He's been in radio forever, and we're gonna talk ostensibly about environment, but Lord, he's probably gonna go on a riff. We don't call him rants, D. We call him riffs.
Oh, sorry. So sorry.
I'm sure he'll get Novak going on like street lamps. Mike Novak's an environmentalist. He's got compost heap. That's how much of an environmentalist he is. You got a compost heap? I'm not talking about the garbage in your living room. I'm talking about a literal compost heap, okay? I'm just kidding. There's no garbage in Dee's living room.
Now, I know at the surface that doesn't sound too great. What are you guys talking about? Turds and light posts? No, it's going to be very good. Mike Novak is he's a very educated funny. Man.
No, he's funny. He can go on these riffs. That's all I'm saying about like the street lights are too bright and why that is. Oh, don't get him started on Rom. Don't get him started on Rom and the environmental program. The city of Chicago is supposed to be such a liberal city, progressive ideas and environmentalism. Got one of the worst track records in the world. So yeah, Mike Novak, we're talking environmentals. I'm sure we'll get into a lot of local talk as well.
I just picture someone driving, listening to the show. Oh, finally, someone's talking compost and light posts. My favorite posts.
I'm going to tell you about Michael T. Novak made a career out of talking about compost heaps. Don't kid yourself, D. A lot of people are in the compost heap. Now, I'm personally not one of them, okay? But I'm just saying. A lot of people are.
So it's
Can you put coffee grounds in the compost heap? Ooh. Remember when I used to do the call-ins about solar? Remember those days, D?
Oh, yeah, solar? Yeah, the radio days.
Yeah, before they fired me?
Yeah.
And people would call in, man. People were into solar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. With our good friend Lisa Albrecht.
Yeah, she's awesome. And people, I'm like, okay, let's talk solar. I didn't know anything about solar. What do I know about solar? People call in. Phone. Dennis would be like, call us at 222-458.
Oh. Okay. I sound nothing like that, but. And there was a guy there that was talking solar too. I don't remember his name, but I remember you called him Solar Boy. That was the name you gave.
I did not call him.
All right, so that's our Sunday interview. Mike Novak, available by 5 a.m. on Sunday. And finally, on Monday, it's her long-awaited return, and it could very well be her first pandemic Ben Joravsky Show appearance. Maybe, yes. Maybe not. It is, okay. Yes. It's our favorite political activist, Misha Patel of Grassroots Collaborative. We'll be talking with her. Also, after the show, what are you planning on talking about?
Fair tax. FT, fair tax. Everything you need to know about the fair tax. Why it's important, why we need it, what the arguments are against it. Contrived, I would say. The forces that are lined up against it. You know, and I'm not pleased with the campaign being run to promote the fair tax. Probably talk about that. But it's really important, in my humble opinion, to pass a fair tax. We've got to figure out a way to adequately. We'll probably be talking about this in the news. So, well, hold off, D. Hold my thoughts.
There you go. There you go.
Hold off. But Misha Patel, yeah, I love Misha Patel. She's super smart, very dedicated, committed activist. She used to come on the show all the time. And I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I do all the booking, and we have fewer guests since we moved to the attic.
Yeah.
And we just, so anyway, I just called her up to it. She's like, finally. I go, wait a minute.
Well, honestly, lucky for her, she got to avoid the whole attic crappy phone phase. We figured this out. We got Google Meet now. You know what I mean?
Can we give a little shout out to Easy Eric Zorn for that?
Easy.
He was the motivation for that.
Come on, boys, get your shit together. Okay, Eric.
So anyway, yeah, thank you, Eric Zorn, for that. So I'm looking for Misha Patel, super smart, super committed, grassroots activist here in the city of Chicago, unafraid to take on the man.
That'll be available Monday morning by 5 a.m. It's this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Look for them at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. All right, so we have a few things to discuss in the local news. Let's get to it. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is out of the House and out on the road today.
Don't believe me? Well, consider these facts.
Okay, take it easy, J.B.
Sorry.
He's a little feisty today. And
JB.
And right now, as we speak, Governor Pritzker is in Elgin, Illinois.
Oh.
He's there to announce funding for welcoming centers to help support Illinois' immigrant community. Ben, we had a little pre-show meeting. You have a little history with Elgin, Illinois.
Yes, I've been. It's one of the few towns in Illinois I've been to, other than Skokie and Evanston. I know Ben's World, the north side of Chicago, Skokie, Evanston. That pretty much sums it up. Love Skokie.
Okay.
Anyway, what's that?
I said, okay. Any memories there of Elgin? Maybe your reefer days?
Great. They were my reefer days. Yes, indeed. So not a lot of sharp memories, but I fell in with a crew of kids from Elgin, and I'd go out there quite frequently and hang out, smoke the reefer. Yeah, man. Listen to the Allman Brothers. Have a good time.
Maybe that's what JB's doing right now in Elgin. Well, after he's done with that speech, you know?
I don't know. He's not an Allman Brother guy. He loves the Eagles and Steve Miller Band.
Oh, that's
Allman Brother guy, you know? So.
All right. So he's going to be in Elgin giving that speech. And I wouldn't be surprised if he also brought up his fair tax initiative proposal. Mm-hmm. He's been pushing it all year. He spent over $56 million campaigning for it. And it is on the November 3rd ballot. But if you're still on the fence about the Fair Tax Initiative, a proposed tax amendment to the Illinois state constitution that would change the state income tax system from a flat tax to a graduated income tax, today you're in luck because the Pritzker administration recently gave us a quick crash course on how the fair tax would work if passed. People, it's time for a fair tax update. Fair tax update. Governor Pritzker just released his tax returns. And hey, everybody, guess what? Yeah, he's richer than all of us. Big surprise, guys. The following comes from the Chicago Tribune and Dan Petrella. The Pritzkers had until Thursday to file their taxes after receiving an extension. And now the records show that Pritzker and his wife, MK, had $2.4 million in state taxable income in 2019. But that's down from nearly $4.4 million in 2018. The Pritzkers personally owed $118,255 in state taxes and $419,853 to the federal government in 2018. Before we move on, Ben, anything you'd like to say there?
Well, $118,000 to the state and $419,000 to the feds. Is that what you said? Is that what you said? Mm-hmm. I'll just point out. I would just point out that's 118,000 more than. Excuse me. I'll do the national. That's 419,000 more than Donnie Trump paid. Just point that out. Just pointing that out there. Young Donald Trump got used every sleazy move he could figure with his accountants to dodge the tax man. And so as a result, J.B. Pritzker has to pay a little more. And so will Dr. D, and so will I. Just wanted to point that out. If you dodge the tax man, somebody else has to pick up the burden because the obligations have to be paid. I got a feeling JB may be dodging the tax man a little bit himself. As I'll let you continue with the news story, young man.
By the way, did you hear that fast math Joravsky just did there? Who needs you, Dan Biss?
No, come on, Dan. We love you. You're the master of mathematics. All I knew is that 419,000 is a heck of a lot more than 750, which is what Donnie Trump paid in taxes in 2016. Go ahead.
Now, the Tribune piece goes on to say that this may not paint a full picture of the governor and his wife's vast wealth. And they remind us that much of which is held in domestic and offshore trusts, many of which were set up in the Bahamas by his grandfather.
I'm not a perfect person.
But hey, let's get to the fair tax portion of this.
Wait, can I just say this? Grandpa Pritzker was no fool.
Yeah, apparently not.
Grandpa's like, hey, here's what you do. We're going to kick it to the Bahamas. We dodge the tax man, all right? I got you covered. Grandkids.
Hey, I was born at night, but not last night. You know what I mean?
Grandpa Pritzker. He's cut from the same cloth as Trump. Here's what we're going to do. Everybody's dodging that tax, man. Duck and dodge.
JB, tuck your shirt in.
Sit up when you eat. Grandpa Pritzker. Grandpa Pritzker. He knew how to duck the tax man. There's this place called the Bahamas, little JB.
Here's what you do.
JB.
You put money in the Bahamas, JB. Listen up. All right, now straighten your tie. Come on.
All right.
Wait, that's kind of Bernie-esque, by the way.
I know.
It's a good one. I like it. Grandpa Pritzker, new character in the Ben Joravsky show.
Yeah.
With Phyllis. Phyllis and Grandpa Pritzker getting together. Hi, Grandpa. I'm like you. I want to dodge the tax man too.
Now, if the fair tax proposal is approved on November 3rd, new higher rates on higher incomes would kick in January 1st. The top rate under a law signed by Pritzker is 7.95% on the full incomes of joint fillers making more than $1 million. Now, thanks to the Pritzker campaign, we have learned that if those rates had been in effect in 2019, the Pritzkers and the trust together would have paid an additional $3.7 million in state taxes.
Yes, that's the whole point, folks. That's the whole point. I just wrote a reader column about this. I wish the fair tax people, I wouldn't even call it the fair tax. The fair tax is like the worst messaging in the world. I was just talking about this with David Ferris. It's like accentuates the tax part of it as opposed to the break part of it. Because if JB Pritzker has to pay $3.7 million more, Dennis and Ben have to pay that a little less. So it's really you're voting for a tax cut for yourself. The great majority of Illinoisans, is that what it is, D? I've been living here since 1966. I don't even know what Illinoisans. Or is it Allians?
Illinoisans.
Illinoisans?
There you go.
Annoying me-ins? Annoyance-ins? Anyway, the great majority of you out there will pay less. But somehow or other, you're so easily bamboozled by the anti-fair tax commercials featuring Phyllis. Phyllis probably got a few investments in the Bahamas. No, I don't know that. I'm sure she doesn't. She wasn't privy to Grandpa Pritzker's advice way back when. Anyway, the great majority of you Illinoisans, you know, you're like, even though you're going to get a break, there's a lot of you who are going to vote no. Like, you believe the stuff they feed you. And so you somehow or other, the column Andy Shaw wrote in the Tribune the other day, D. Come on, Andy. You're better than that. You were raised by good liberals. I was really embarrassed to read that. This notion that somehow or other we cannot change the rate structure in Illinois, have a progressive rate until we quote unquote clean up Illinois. I'm like, I'll work from the assumption. I just talked about it. I talk about it all the time. There's corruption in Illinois. There's corruption in Chicago. There's corruption in every state in the union. You still got to pay the bills, Andy. Those roads aren't going to repave themselves. What? So what? You're just going to continue putting the onus on the people who could least afford to pay it until this miraculous day when somehow or other Illinois and Chicago is free of corruption? Show me one civilization anywhere that's free of corruption. It's like a goal that will never be reached. So I guess that's it. Well, sorry. We're just going to stick the burden on the people who could at least afford to pay it until we're officially clean of corruption. And I'll let you know when we're officially clean of corruption. So these are just some of the arguments that they're shoving down our throats. And, you know, you got Phyllis coming on TV, doing those commercials, making up stuff, saying that this could lead to taxing retirement income, even though the two aren't connected at all. Old people all over the state of Illinois, I better know. I heard Phyllis say it. It must be true if Phyllis said it. I heard it on my TV. Hold on, D. I have to have some water.
All right, JB, here's what you do. You go to the toilets, you rip out all the plumbing. Next thing you know, you'll be saving tons of money. By the way, go cut your fingernails. They're long.
By the way, can I just say something? I think JB figured that one out on himself. I don't think we can blame Grandpa for that one. You talk about Toiletgate? Phyllis is enraged by Toiletgate. Did you see Toiletgate? Oh, Phyllis. Yeah, Phyllis. He ripped up the toilets to get a break in his property taxes. People are always trying to dodge the tax. But I give him credit, though. He's an enemy to his class. They must hate him. D, could you imagine what rich people say about Pritzker when no one's around? Dead mother. Beep. I'll tell you right, folks. Take a look. Well, I'm going to do this for you. After Election Day, I'm going to take a look at the 42nd Ward in Chicago. That's the Gold Coast Ward, one of the richest wards in the city. I'll look at the 43rd Ward, too. That's Lincoln Park. That's Pritzker country. He lives somewhere around there. We'll see how his neighbors voted. I'll bet you those are the highest votes against the fair tax. There, damn, throwing that out there. I'll bet you the vote is higher against the fair tax in the 42nd and the 43rd Ward than in Republican country, like in the 41st. I'm throwing that out there, D. I'm going on a limb, throwing that out there. Of course, if you know what? I'm going to stand by it, D. I'm going to write that column. I hope I'm right. I hope but when I say I hope I'm right, I hope that means that people in the 41st Ward, even though a lot of cops live out there, are going to vote Republican, a lot of firefighters are probably going to vote Republican, they still have enough sense to know that the fair tax means wealthier people pay the greater portion of the burden than them. We'll see. We shall see.
We shall see. And that was a fair tax update.
Fair tax update.
Springfield College.
Hey, not now, Phyllis.
Come on, Phyllis.
And hey, what the hell? Since we're talking about money and the 2020 Illinois general election, the numbers are in. And right now, in my bearded face, I have some 2020 Illinois candidate campaign finance records. It's time for a 2020 Illinois general election candidate update.
This is a 2020 Illinois general election candidate update.
We're playing the hits today, buddy.
D.
All right, which candidate has the most money? Which candidate has spent the most money? Which candidate has the most money on hand? And hey, which candidate wants to give me and Ben some money?
Yeah, come on, you cheapskates.
Come on, we'll talk to you. We'll go to your town and talk to you guys. The magic number is now 18. Only 18 days until Election Day. And today we have campaign fundraising and spending totals for some of the local races that we've been following here on the program for the last couple of months. So let's get right into it here. We begin with the numbers out of the heated congressional rematch in the 13th congressional district between incumbent Republican Rodney Davis and his Democratic challenger, Betsy Dirksen Londrigan. And despite Rodney Davis's awful commercials. The challenger, Dirksen Londrigan, has outraised and outspent Rodney Davis. Londrigan raised $1.5 million, spent $2.4 million, and has $1.4 million cash on hand. Rodney Davis has raised $1.2 million, spent $1.4 million, and has raised $1.7 million. So it looks like Londrigan has Davis's number here.
Yeah, well, this is a trend that's been happening since Donald Trump got elected. And like I pointed this out at the top of the show, Democrats were ready to redo the 2016 election almost as soon as it happened. And so one of the things they did is organize, go knock on doors, make phone calls, write postcards. The other thing is kick in money. So Betsy Dirksen Londrigan's race is viewed as a winnable race. It's kind of unfair. I mean, it's not unfair. It's I guess called smart politicking. They judge the Democratic pollsters judge which race is most winnable, and then they rate them. And then donors in Arizona who know nothing about Illinois or they just want the Democrat to win go, okay, I'm told that Betsy Dirksen Londrigan can win. I'll kick her some money. So that's been going on for a while. I think it was true in 2018, but here's the part of the story, the other part of the story. The gerrymandering in the state gives a huge advantage to Rodney Davis. So Betsy Dirksen Londrigan is running in a district that was set up to benefit a Republican. You know, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I believe in a fair map as an ideal. I believe in a fair map, a nationwide fair map. You just have computer draw them. Let the chips fall where they may. And that means that there wouldn't be any quote unquote safe seats. How about that? But the fair map system we have now, it's only suckers and saps like Democrats in Illinois who are for it. Republicans in Wisconsin and Michigan aren't for it, or North Carolina aren't for it. So until it's a nationwide thing, we're going to have this very partisan map-drawn districts where a guy like Rodney Davis is at a disadvantage. Has a huge advantage, and Betsy Dirksen Londrigan is trying to make up for it with sensational fundraising.
So those are the numbers out of the 13th congressional district race. Coming up after our interview with Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain, not one, not two, but three campaign ads to play from Betsy Dirksen Londrigan. So be on the lookout for that. All right, now on to the 14th district. Democrat Lauren Underwood versus challenger Jim the Ice Cream Man Oberweis. Who raised more money? Well, we got the police coming by my apartment here. Hold on. Who raised more money? Lauren Underwood, $1.8 million. Who spent more money? Lauren Underwood, $2.7 million. And who has more cash on hand, guys? It's Lauren Underwood, $2.3 million. Oberweis raised $986,000, spent $485,000, and has $876,000 cash on hand. But give it time. I'm sure he'll start forking over more of his own money in no time. He's really rich, everybody.
Yeah, he's an absolute disgrace, Jim Oberweis. I'm really rooting for Lauren Underwood. We talked about this yesterday. He's running hate-filled commercials, stupid commercials, trying to play on racial animosity. That's his ticket. Shame on you, Jim Oberweis, and shame on any voter in the 14th congressional falls for it. Go, Lauren Underwood. Sorry, D. Got a little partisan there. No. The show should be not partisan. Well, pretend it's NPR. And in the 14th congressional district, interesting race. Jim Oberweis, his family made money in ice cream. Lauren Underwood, former nurse.
Pretend it's NPR with sirens going on in the background of my apartment, because they would do that all the time.
I know, NPR. Yeah, no sirens at NPR. We've blotted out the world. NPR.
All right, we're moving on to the 6th congressional district election, and that's between incumbent Democrat Won't Stop, Can't Stop, Sean Puffy Kasten, and his Republican challenger, no one's favorite, please stop, Jeannie Ives. Who raised more money? It's actually a tie. Both Kasten and Ives have raised $1.1 million. Who spent more money? That'll be Mr. Kasten, $2.2 million. Who has more cash on hand? Also Sean Kasten, $2 million. Jeannie Ives has spent $1.1 million and has $494,000 cash on hand.
Yeah, Jeannie Ives has a big decision to make as to how she spends that money as it go down the stretch. Is she going to accentuate sort of the happy-go-lucky, perky Jeannie Ives? And remember that commercial, D? Hi, I'm Jeannie Ives. I'm putting on my running shoes. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Or is she going to be the Jeannie Ives, tooth and claw? I come from the far right. Whack 'em up.
Last noise there.
That's like an eagle on steroids.
I'm Jeannie Ives. Want to know why I'm running for Congress? Walk a mile in my shoes.
Yeah, that's the perky Jeannie Ives. Then get back to the one who's screaming around her. They're not right-wing enough. She was MAGA hat wearing with a Trump sign in her lawn. Remember that? I got a Trump. I'm not only for Trump, she said. I got a Trump sign in my law. Well, she's kind of downplaying that in the perky Jeannie Ives. So she got a big decision, D. How's she going to spend that money? She going to try to get MAGA out in the 6th Congressional? Get that MAGA vote out? Or is she going to try to win over the undecided voter who is moderate on social issues, but a fiscal conservative, which is just a funny way of saying they don't like paying taxes.
I'm sure she's trying to cut a deal with Trump right now. Please just put a commercial out saying to go vote for me, please.
I don't know. See, that's a good point, but I don't know if that's going to work in the
Go vote.
6th Congressional. I don't know if that'll work. I think the 6th. Don't quote me on this, D. But I think the 6th went for Hillary in 2006. Don't quote me on that. But I think it did. So I don't know if the Trump MAGA is really going to work. Oh, tough decision for Jeannie Ives.
There's plenty of money to go around over at the Willie Wilson party in his Senate race against Dick Durbin. According to Willie Wilson, he has raised $3 million, spent only $845,000, and has $2.2 million cash on hand.
That's a lot of money for a third-party candidate.
Right.
As we all know, Willie Wilson's running on the Willie Wilson ticket.
Yeah.
And at the
So,
Willie Wilson
is that the only source you can go by? If it's the Willie Wilson party, I guess, hey, if Willie Wilson says it, I guess it's true.
I just don't know how much of that money is his own money. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Willie Wilson's well-to-do. He's a very successful businessman. And so he is not afraid to contribute to his campaign. So I don't know, based on what you said, how much is it that he raised individually. Willie Wilson, I love you, but I am really hoping that Dick Durbin wins that race. Sorry, Willie, can't be with you on this one.
And finally, our Cook County State's Attorney's race between incumbent Democrat Kim Foxx and her challenger, Pat I Hate Empire O'Brien. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Rachel Hinton. With less than 3 weeks until the final votes can be cast, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx is heading into the home stretch of her re-election bid with the potential to be outspent nearly 2-1 by Republican rival Pat O'Brien. Kim Foxx reported having $202,290 left in her campaign coffers at the end of last month, and available filings show only $14,300 raised since then, giving her roughly $216,590 to spend. O'Brien had $225,653 in the bank at the end of last month and has reported raising $201,673 since then, giving the former Cook County judge at least, boy, I hate reading numbers, $427,326 to spend. And the Republican notified the Illinois State Board of Elections Wednesday that the $70,000 he lent his campaign the day before brought the total he personally dumped into his campaign war chest to $101,075. That effectively lifts the limits all candidates in the race can accept from donors or themselves. O'Brien said even before now he's been, quote, outraising Kim Foxx.
Yeah, Pat O'Brien, what a joke. I urge everybody, it's the Eric Zorn show today, huh? I urge everybody to check out Eric's columns on this. We talked about this I forget what day we were talking about this, D. Was it Tuesday? I lost track of time. Pat O'Brien, as a prosecutor, is handling the Lori Rosati case, the murder case. 4 innocent teenagers were sent to prison. You call that justice? And what did Eric say? He goes, Smollett Gate. Well, nobody calls it Smollett Gate except for the Ben Joravsky show. But Smollett Gate is an embarrassment, and the Rossetti case is a travesty. So it's a joke. Republicans, they're not a serious party right now. They talk every now and then. Donald Trump talks about his First Step program. He's so happy. The law they passed, it really is the best law he did. Got a call from Kim Kardashian and it just gets things going. A little criminal justice reform at a federal level. He let Blago out of prison, give him credit for that. And then meanwhile, Republicans are just on the local level running campaigns, be tough on law and order, throw more people in jail, beat the confessions out of them if we have to. Such a complete farce. So I'm hoping Kim Foxx wins. Smollett Gate is an embarrassment. She should never have taken that phone call. She shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm sure she's like, I hate Empire too. Good Lord, this has caused me so much crap.
But when you compare Smollett Gate to something that went down in the case of those 4 boys that were sent to prison for crime they didn't commit, just like hell-bent on locking them up, beat confessions out of them. Come on. Small potatoes, ladies and gentlemen, small potatoes.
And finally, the news in the city of Chicago. No public events scheduled for our Chicago Mayor, Lori Lightfoot.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Well, good afternoon. Very nice.
That one cracks me up.
So, hey.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's like, bad news is about to come after that. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh-oh. What'd I do wrong?
So no public events scheduled for the mayor. So let's talk Eddygate.
Today I'm announcing that I terminated Eddie Johnson's employment as superintendent of the Chicago Police Department for cause effective immediately.
The time when Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson became former Chicago Police Superintendent after a video was released of him passed out and intoxicated in his vehicle. And boy, did this story take a dark and serious turn. So we learned yesterday that 5 cops were suspended for trying to cover up for their boss, Eddie Johnson, during this event late last year. And then, right as Thursday's show was coming to a close, a Chicago police officer who was assigned to former Superintendent Eddie Johnson's security detail, Cynthia Donald, filed a sexual abuse and harassment lawsuit against the former top cop, Eddie Johnson. Well, we now have even more details. According to city travel records obtained by the Chicago Sun-Times, while he was Chicago's police superintendent, Eddie Johnson went on at least 7 out-of-town taxpayer-funded business trips with his female bodyguard. City travel records show Johnson and Donald traveled to Springfield together 5 times, including for the signing of a gun control bill in June 2017 and in February 2018 when Johnson testified in support of gun control legislation named in honor of slain Chicago Police Commander Paul Bauer. Johnson and Donald had adjacent rooms in the Wyndham Springfield City Center on both of those trips, records show. In 2018, Johnson and Donald traveled to a police ethics conference in New Orleans and stayed on the same floor of the Hotel Indigo in the Garden District, records show. And according to the lawsuit, multiple times Johnson ordered Donald to come into his room for sex.
What that first story about the travel, that was a new one in the Sun-Times, D?
Yeah.
I haven't had an opportunity to read it because, of course, I just read the newspaper. Who wrote it? Do you know? Just curious.
I'll be taking a look here right now.
Just curious. Just curious.
All right. It's going to take a little longer. Stall, Ben, stall.
Okay. Well, no, the obsession with Eddie Johnson is unceasing. And let's face it, folks, the sexual angle is what got most of you going from the get-go. From the absolute get-go with this story, when he was caught making out with this woman at a Cynthia Donald at a bar in Chicago, that was the hook. Like Smollett Gate, the hook was it was a celebrity. Oh, they talk about rebrand. Chicago loves celebrities. A celebrity came to Chicago and lived in Chicago. Wow, it's so exciting. Like, how many stories is Sun-Times going to write about? What's that rehab show, Dave?
Windy City Rehab.
Oh, my God. Let's get more celebrities. Like, they like Chicago. Such a second city. This person actually stayed in Chicago once.
Oh, it's the guy from the TV.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. In Chicago. We're so important.
By the way, that article was from Frank Main and Mitch Dudek. Mitch the Dude.
All right. Just curious. So Chicago loves celebrities. Chicago loves sex scandals. So, yeah, this story will be around for a long, long time. It has taken a dark turn. Some very serious allegations in that lawsuit against Eddie Johnson. Also, they dragged that lawsuit. I saw this in the Bright One today. Dragged in Lori Lightfoot. Did you see that, D? The part of the lawsuit claims. Hold on, turning my Bright One. Now I'm gonna have to read it through the pink, which won't be easy. All right, hold on, D. Hold on. Here we go. XCPD sued. That's the headline. XCPD sued. Sued for sex abuse, harassment. That's more like a Tribune type headline, you know? They didn't try anything clever with this. But here we go. The 5-count lawsuit filed late Wednesday in Cook County Court by Officer Cynthia Donald claims that while Johnson was her boss, he forced Donald to perform sex acts and sent her unsolicited lewd photos, and the city of Chicago and Mayor Lori Lightfoot retaliated against her when the allegations against Johnson came to light. The Lori Lightfoot spokespeople said it's not true. But yeah, so Lori Lightfoot's been dragging. This is a bizarre story. In other words, according to the lawsuit, Donald was punished by the city when she made the allegations that she was being sexually harassed by Eddie Johnson. And then, of course, as we know, Lori Lightfoot fired Eddie Johnson, said he had lied to her. So everything is just, it's a tangle. And we will be spending, I guarantee this, we will be spending the better part of the next year untangling it, going through it. And because, like I said, it has several just gripping elements to it. Eddie Gate will be with us long after the current police chief is gone, David Brown. You know what I'm saying, Dave? This is going to be around for a long, long time.
All right, so that's the local news, guys. Like I said, coming up after our interview with Rummana Hussain, we have 3 Betsy Dirksen Londrigan ads to play for all of you. And judging by how this race has gone between the two, I bet I'll have 3 to play from Rodney Davis as well by the time we get there. So stick around for that. Also, make sure to follow us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You could send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. Ben, I just forwarded you an email from a listener. He wanted to talk with you a little bit about your interview with David Ferris and the fair tax. He had some opinions there, so I forwarded that your way. Be like that guy. Send us an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. Leave your name and where you're from. We really appreciate you leaving that message. By the way, his name was Steve. Steve, you're the man. Thank you very much. And you can call the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. 708-658-4788. That number again, 708-658-4788. Call the Ben Joravsky Show. Don't expect someone to answer. And leave us a voicemail. And who knows? There's a good chance we'll play your voicemail on our program. All right, we're going to take a break here. I am sending the Google Meet invite to Rummana Hussain now. And when we come back, Sun-Times editor Rummana Hussain for the Rummana Rundown. It's the Ben Joravsky Show. We are live from my apartment in his attic.
Try not to rock the boat. Don't wanna give you all false hope. That's the story from the editorial board. The candidate most likable is somehow not electable. That's the story from the editorial board. We'd like to save the world when it's under attack, but how you
afternoon, everyone.
This election, Chicago voters are casting a ballot on much more than the President of the United States. Some of the races we will be voting on include the Cook County State's Attorney, over 60 judges, our Water Reclamation District Commissioners, which I'm trying to get Ben to go for, still hasn't done it yet, and changes to our taxes. With all these races, candidates, and issues, casting an informed ballot can seem like a challenge. But Chicago Votes, a nonpartisan organization, is here to provide you with information on the candidates and issues on the ballot. Their 2020 voter guide is available digitally at chicagovotes.com and chicagoreader.com. Pull it up on your laptop, take it with you into the voting booth on your phone, and feel confident in knowing who and what you are voting for. chicagovotes.com. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, take it away.
Every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show, Rummana Hussain, editor, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, joins us, one of our most popular features. I just want to say before I bring Rummana on, Dee, I saw the email from Steve. It's a great email, and I think what we'll do is after Rummana's interview, I'll read the email and respond. But really good email from Steve, some cogent points that he makes.
Hell yeah.
About David Ferris and a fair tax. So we'll get to it, Steve. But first, Rummana Hussain from the Sun-Times. Oh, my goodness, Rummana, we're going to talk Amy Coney Barrett. And Dennis is going to play a Lindsey Graham. Watch, you're going to see this. We're going to have like actual tape, a recording to play. Dennis is going to show you how good he is at playing that tape. Liberals discover Bill Burr. I got a big kick out of that. Liberals woke up one day and discovered there was a comedian named Bill Burr. And he had funny things to say about white women. New York Times poll of Indian Americans. I know you got a lot to say about that, and I can't wait to hear you say it. And what else? Oh, Eddygate. Let's start with Eddygate. And of course, Rummana recommendation, Rummana. Eddygate, of course, we just got finished talking about it. Rummana, you and I have been talking for about over a year about Justice Smollett. And if at times we just roll our eyes, like, I can't believe this story is still around and we're still talking about it. The things Chicagoans get obsessed about, celebrityhood, they just love celebrities. But I think Eddie Johnson, the scandal around Eddie Johnson, may outlast Justice Smollett. What's your thoughts, your just general thoughts about how this thing is going?
That's possible. I feel like this whole week has been a lot of Eddie Johnson news. There's talk about the officers who, had covered up for him following the scandal that caused him to get fired. And then we had the lawsuit that was filed against Eddie Johnson. This is a woman that was on a security detail team, and she was the woman that was with him the night that he was caught outside his home, intoxicated in his car. And that's the event, obviously, that led him to be fired. She filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against him. There's a lot of explosive allegations in there. And I believe today the IG report involving the Eddie Johnson case, the city's IG report, I think that came out today. I think one of the bombshells that came out on there that he took trips, like maybe 7 trips with this woman, and they were all on the taxpayer's dime. So that was one of the, I think, allegations that came out of the IG report.
Wait, hold on one second. So Dennis just read that. So I didn't realize he literally just read that story, breaking story by Frank Main in the Bright One. So I didn't realize that was based on information gleaned from they finally released the IG report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was today. I believe that was today, because we were actually talking in a news meeting about how there was so much Eddie Johnson news this week. And then somebody in the news meeting said, yeah, and the IG report's going to be released tomorrow, meaning today, Friday. So that was yesterday.
Well, that was like a little sideshow to Eddygate, was the fact that the Inspector General had dedicated a lot of hours to investigating it, wrote a report, but only highlights of the report, or certain portions of the report have been released. And Lori Lightfoot was defiant. I'm not going to release this report. I don't care what you say, and now, so apparently they released it. I did not realize that. Breaking news in the Ben Joravsky Show. All right, we'll have plenty of time to talk about all the salacious allegations that have been raised against Eddie Johnson. I know this will be around for over a year, but I just have to say, Rummana, I told you this, just shook my head and kind of smiled. 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Chicago Tribune reporters were assigned to write this story. 4 reporters. Come on. I'm sorry, Rummana. I do not believe this warrants 4 reporters working on it. Well, the guy's not even the police chief anymore. Go ahead, your thoughts.
And we had only one reporter who was on the case, Sam Charles. So my hat's off to him. This is very common. I mean, the Tribune, as we know, has been struggling the past couple of years, or especially within the last year. So I don't want to knock my friends there, because I do have a lot of friends who work there, but they have fewer reporters than they did even like 4 or 5 years ago. But one of the things that would make me laugh when I was at the criminal courthouse and I would be covering a case, it was a pretty high profile case, and I'd be like the only one covering the case, and the Tribune would have like, I look up and, my, basically the person that I would be my competition, they would have like, all of a sudden I hear a knock on the press door, and then you see like 2 other Tribune reporters there, and they're like, yeah, we're helping out. And, they would be running, one would be assigned to talk to like, family members, who were tied to the case, where all the press was gathered, where all the cameras were gathered. And the, one reporter would like be tweeting, and the other, the reporter that would usually be covering 26 and Cal would be doing something else. And I'd be the only sad person from the Sun-Times running around like with the chicken with its head cut off, like covering everything. And then there'd be some days where there'd be like 2 or 3 different cases happening at one time. And I would tell my bosses, because they do send me like backup, but there'd be days where they'd be like, well, sorry, you don't have anybody to cover, help you. So do you have to try to do everything else? So I'd be running up and down the courthouse, the stairs at the courthouse, and the Tribune would have like they'd all be comfortable because they'd have like 2 or 3 reporters helping them out. So that's a very common thing where we cover something and then be like 4 reporters. I have to tell you that the Tribune has 4 reporters. I do have to tell you that there's sometimes, even at the Sun-Times, where we have like 3 or 4 people on one story. And that's when it's like, so there are times where we have the same thing. And there could be a reporter that's like out all day waiting for something and they don't get anything, but you still want to give them the byline for doing all that work. So so sometimes there are cases where I'm thinking they probably sent the Tribune probably sent other reporters different places to find more information about Eddie Johnson. I don't know if it took necessarily 4 people to cover it, but
well, I got to tell you this. There's so much embedded in this. Number one, just listening to you, I've never worked for the Tribune or the Sun-Times, but I'm aware from friends who've worked at the Sun-Times that sometimes reporters have always, there's like a little chip on their shoulder, which I like. I got a big chip on my shoulder about a lot of things, but sometimes reporters, it's like they're, and I'm generalizing, I understand, but they're like, the notion is like the Tribune's pampered. And the Sun-Times, I'm just going to speak, this is me speaking, not Rummana. Like the Sun-Times was a union, and for years the Tribune wasn't, now it is. So the Sun-Times, like union would be seriously hardcore negotiating. The Tribune would look at the Sun-Times and then, throw a few coins at its reporters based on the Sun-Times union would do all the work. And the Tribune reporters would be like, well, we don't need a union. They take care of us, you know? And so it's like that Dylan song, how does it feel to be on your own? Anyway, so now the Tribune has a union, and God bless them, I love their union, but you got that chip on your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes reporters, because it's like it was a little pampered at the Tribune, and when I see 4 reporters, it brings it home.
And I did work at the Tribune. I worked there when City News, when the Sun-Times pulled out of City News and it was taken over by the Tribune. I worked for them, and then I was a 1-year resident there. So I did get sent. I remember when Jesse Jackson, it turned out that he had fathered a baby outside his marriage. I remember sitting inside of a van with the Tribune photographer. I spent 8 hours of my day just waiting there. I think those days are over. Like they would be, they'd have enough reporters or enough, residents to sit out there and stake a lot of places out. I don't think we have that at either papers now. So.
All right. And the Jesse Jackson reference is a good way to get to this next point. The obsession. It's not just Chicago, but let's just talk. The obsession with sex. You know, I'm laughing at myself. Like, I've tried to get people interested in municipal financing scandals for 30 years. Very difficult to do, Rummana. You get a little sex in a story, that's it. It's Jesse Jackson. What, he had a kid out of wedlock? Boom! We're going to send a photographer down to get Jesse Jackson Jr. Remember the blonde? The Sometimes had the picture of the blonde lady? Oh, yeah. We're going to put that blonde on the front page. Eddie Johnson, sexual harassment suit, 4 reporters. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. What about Chicago and sex, Rummana?
I just think it's an easy topic for people to understand and relate to, like municipal, bonds or something like that. It's a little more complex. So I think it's just one of those stories where, everybody's going to kind of zoom to. And I mean, with Jesse Jackson, he's like a reverend. And with Eddie Johnson, he was a police superintendent. And, there was a question of, lying and whether he used a squad car for there's just like a lot of different things. I think it's easier for people to digest and understand.
No, I know. I could just hear the Dudley Do-Rights in the newsroom. Ben, he lied about the squad car. That's why we're concerned. Has nothing to do with the sex, okay? He had lied about, I don't know, whether he bought a bottle of milk. Do you still believe Milkgate?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's sex. Sex sells, sex shall lead. 4 Reporters Tribune. I don't know. A little excessive. All right. I know we'll have a lot to talk about Eddie Gate as the time rolls on. Let's hear your thoughts on Amy Coney Barrett. And Dee, are you there? I'd love to play the Lindsey Graham clip. This really relates, Rummana, to I think what you're going to say. Lindsey Graham, of course, is the Republican senator from South Carolina, and he chaired the Judiciary Committee that oversaw the hearings. And he had some comments to make to Amy Coney Barrett near the end of her testimony that I found nauseating. And we'll play them, and then we'll get your thoughts. All right, Dee, go ahead.
I think it's pretty clear to everybody who's been watching these hearings that you and your family are pro-life, that you are a practicing Catholic, and you adhere to the tenets of your faith. But I hope people also understand that you have made a pledge to the committee and to the country at large that you will set aside whatever religious views you have when it comes time to decide the law. I have never been more proud of a nominee than I am of you. You've been candid to this body about who you are, what you believe. You've been reassuring in your disposition, and this is history being made, folks. This is the first time in American history that we've nominated a woman who's unashamedly pro-life and embraces her faith without apology, and she's going to the court. A seat at the table is waiting on you.
Oh, wow. I mean, first of all, he starts off, it's just contradiction embedded in one statement. He starts off by saying that you've proved that you will not let your faith get in the way of any decision. And he concludes by emphasizing the historical significance of sending a woman who's unabashedly pro-life. If she's not going to allow her personal decisions to rule her on her decisions, what difference does it make, Senator Lindsey Graham, what her personal views are? Why is it historically significant that we're sending an unabashedly pro-life woman to the Supreme Court if she's not going to weigh that on anything? Rummana, they're sending out so many mixed messages here, and I know you have thoughts on this. Go ahead.
I know. I'm not going to talk about Amy Coney Barrett is in terms of whether or not she's a fit nominee, but I just think it's interesting that, people, there are people on the right who are acting like her faith is being attacked, and they keep saying people shouldn't discriminate against her because of her religion. And it's kind of funny because Ilhan Omar tweeted that if this was a Muslim woman and she was pro-life, there would be a lot of people tweeting about Sharia law, and this wouldn't even be a question. I mean, she would just be shot down she wouldn't even be considered. But for people to act like being Catholic, you're persecuted in this country. I'm not saying that, people aren't maligned because, they're religious or they believe in certain views, but I kind of feel like being Christian in this country is seen as a good thing. There are other religions, including mine, that aren't seen as a good thing just from the get-go. I could run for an office and not have any of the views that Amy Coney Barrett has, and I would still be maligned because of who I am. We all know that Barack Obama I feel like Barack Obama joined a church as soon as he knew he was going to have political aspirations. Was he a regular church-going guy beforehand? I don't know if he was, but, he had the, ethnic sounding name, and he was raised by, 2 Muslim men, and he has Muslim ties, meaning he has Muslims in his family, and he had to denounce and he had to basically separate himself. And, there are whispers of him being a Muslim and how he could use his faith and, change the way this country is ruled. I heard talks about that. And this guy had to go out of his way to prove that he was a Christian and to assure everybody that he was a Christian so people could think that he was like an okay guy. So I just find all that talk about Amy Coney Barrett being discriminated against because of her religion just ludicrous.
Yeah,
from a personal opinion.
Yeah, it plays into this theme that the Republicans like to promote, that they're a persecuted group in this country, and that they're rallying to defend their sacred values from an onslaught of leftists, thugs, hoodlums, and Muslims.
Yeah.
And it's radicals, Ilhan Omar, the squad. They'll throw AOC into it every now and then. But at the same breath, old boy says, but don't worry, she's not going to bring her faith into it. So it's just a double message. And you're right. That would be interesting if they promoted, I know this is impossible to imagine, but a Muslim judge who was virulently anti-abortion.
Yeah.
If they promote, what would the messaging be for that?
I don't even think it would get to that point. That's what I'm just saying. I mean, it's just, there could be a Muslim person running and, they just identify, they're not religious, but it's just an identity they have. That person would be crucified. Even if they had even if they were trying to message or trying to cater to a certain group, I don't think they would get that far. I mean, definitely times have changed. We have Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. They're in the government, and that I wouldn't see 10, 15 years ago. So there are little changes, but I could never see a Muslim woman wearing hijab and then, she was pro-life being considered for the Supreme Court. There's no way. For that matter, I think it would be hard to see an Orthodox Jewish woman. But I'm just saying, if there was a Muslim woman who didn't even, just even said that she was Muslim and was pro-life, she just would have been, they'd say that she was trying to use her religion, and then they're going to try to change this country into a Muslim country. That's the kind of talk that we would hear. Yeah. It would be nonstop.
It would be nonstop, and she wouldn't be nominated in the first place.
Exactly.
Because the Democrats would be so afraid of being black. But it worked. I mean, the Democrats in this election year stayed far away from Amy Coney Barrett's religious beliefs, whatever groups that she had belonged to, because controversial as many of them were. And they stayed just far away from that, which of course did not stop Republicans from saying that Amy Coney Barrett was being picked on and persecuted for her religious beliefs. All right. So I had a feeling you were going to say that. And then additionally, this week, there was a story that came out of the New York Times. Homework for Rummana. I immediately sent it to her. You already read it.
Yeah, I already read it. So it was kind of it was homework that you gave me that I already did, but I kind of reread the article yesterday.
Interesting take. A New York Times poll of Indian Americans, and I think, doing off the top of my head, roughly 72% to 75% of the respondents said they intended to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not shocked by that at all. I thought the article was a little. It could have went a little deeper. It talked about how a lot of Indian Americans, are angry about the way Trump talks about, people of color. But one of the things I noticed from the article, and maybe it's because I'm an Indian Muslim, is that they didn't mention anything about the Islamophobia that's coming out of the White House. And a lot of Indians are Muslim. We're the largest minority group in India. It's about there's 1 billion people in India. So even though we're like 12 to 14 or 12 to 15% of the population, it's a lot of Muslims. So I thought that fact that they didn't point that out was kind of a little faulty. And then there was parts in the article that talked about how Donald Trump and Narendra Modi is the leader of India, the prime minister of India. He's also painted, and many people would say, very anti-Muslim. Trump and Modi had a rally last year in Houston, Texas, and they talk a little bit about that in the article. And there are Trump supporters among conservative Indians. And then they talk about how, people are wondering whether that rally or the fact that Kamala Harris is the vice presidential nominee, whether that would be, a determining factor. I don't think that Indians are just going to vote for Joe Biden because of Kamala Harris. That's just my personal opinion. I think that's just as superficial as anybody thinking that if they nominate a black vice presidential nominee, all the black people are going to run out to vote for that particular candidate. I think it's a lot more complex, and there's a lot more factors at play. And the article, I kind of felt like they could have talked to more Indians, but I mean, there were some things I agreed with. But I'm not surprised that more Indians are Democratic than before. And one of the things that I was pointing out to my husband Mick yesterday was that Indian Americans are the second largest immigrant group in the United States. So that's pretty telling, and that should tell you that people should be, talking to us, during, these.
Is that right?
Rallies.
I did not know that. Who's number one?
Well, you didn't read your homework then. It was in the article.
Oh.
No, it was in the article. And then Indians tend to be.
I forgot that part of the story.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think Asian Americans in general, like overall, we're one of the largest. We're a growing group, and we are going to be important in future elections. I think.
But who was the number one immigrant group? I can't remember that from the story.
It didn't say that, but I would.
Oh, no wonder I didn't remember.
I would think that it's the Mexican Americans.
I would say so too. I would put my money. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I think a lot of politicians do take a lot of people of color. We know that they take African Americans of color for granted. I think they definitely take Asian Americans for granted. We're never spoken to as a group. We're never targeted as a group to get out the vote. I guess the assumption is that we're going to vote for the Democrats. So I don't know. I think these are interesting topics to talk about, and that was one of the things that I was noticing when the DNC. You watched the virtual DNC? They had a lot of like former white Trump supporters, or they had a lot of people that were, white. And I'm not saying that I know why they have to talk to a certain segment of the population, the working class whites, but there's a lot of us who are, I'm not working class Indian, obviously, but there are a lot of other working class people, and they're people of color. And I think the Democrats need to learn that they need to learn how to talk to different groups and include them in their campaign. That was one of the things I think that really helped Bernie Sanders, especially when it came to Mexicans and Muslims of all different colors. He really spoke to those groups, and I think the Democrats don't necessarily speak to those particular groups.
Well, you raised a really good point about ethnic voting. And I remember in 2000, Al Gore chose as his running mate Joseph Lieberman, who's Jewish, senator from Connecticut. And the idea was that was going to help him with Jewish voters in Florida. It didn't really help that much. Florida was so close that they were able to steal the Republicans, thanks to the Supreme Court. And George Bush got to be the president, even though he didn't have a majority of the vote. So the point is that it didn't have the impact that they thought it is. And I think you're right. I think that just getting a person from a certain ethnic group does not guarantee that that whole ethnic group is going to fall in line. I look at this like Tim Scott in South Carolina is a black man. He's a Republican. I don't know. I have to look and see what percentage of the black vote he can depend on. Was James Jones is running for Senate in Michigan. He's a black man, black Republican, running against guy Gary Peters. I don't know what percentage of the black vote he can depend on. In other words, if ideologically a person is running against or an opposition to the mainstream ideology of his or her ethnic group, I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if a real conservative Jew will get a lot of Jewish votes running against Jan Schakowsky. You know, I just don't see that happening.
No, I agree. And you know, the funny, interesting thing that when you mentioned George Bush, when he had the VP, God, what's his name? God, you just mentioned
Dick Cheney.
No, George Bush. This is W. When he did get the running mate that was, you know, a right wing, well, he was a little more moderate Jewish. A lot of Muslims did vote for George Bush because they thought he was going to be voting different from them on Israel on that.
Oh, you mean Al Gore? When Al Gore took Joe Lieberman as his running, it was Al Gore. Yeah, it
was Al Gore. So sorry, but a lot of Muslims, I can tell you, did vote for George Bush that year, and then afterwards they're like, well, maybe we shouldn't vote like a one topic, you know, we shouldn't have like, you know, there's a lot of discussion about whether that was the right thing to do afterwards.
No, Ray Hanania came on this show. I should bring him back because he's a very entertaining guest. Ray Hanania, this is before your time. For years was reporter at the Sun Times.
I know he is.
Oh, you know, PR guy's done really well for himself, the public relations. Ray Hanania said, he came on the show, he goes, he voted for Donald Trump, okay? Ray Hanania is Palestinian and American, and he voted for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is more sympathetic to the Palestinians. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the I've heard every reason given for voting for someone, but that hasn't really worked out your way, Ray Hanania.
No, and I Ray Hanania is a Facebook friend of mine, so I do see the you know the statuses, and I can tell you I don't agree, But yeah, it was like, so when a lot of Muslims did vote for George Bush in 2000 because of Lieberman, I can tell you that. But there was a lot of discussion afterwards about whether, you know, we have to really think about the way we vote. And most Muslims are voting to vote Democrat, I would say now. Like, you know, it's changed. There's definitely Muslims for Trump too. You know, everybody has like I don't know if I have a relative that voted for Trump, but I just feel like you talk to anybody these days and somebody has a relative that voted for Trump.
Yeah, no, there's undoubtedly, but 72 to 75% of Indian Americans are going to, according to this poll, are going to vote for Joe Biden. And I contend that it's not because Kamala Harris, that it would have been that number had he picked a Jewish running mate, had he picked a Christian running mate. I just think there's something about the attacks that Donald Trump have made on the immigrant community and people of color, and he's done it from the moment he announced he was running Rummana till yesterday, he was still doing it at the town hall. And I don't think it took Kamala Harris to get Indian Americans to see what's going on.
I agree.
Yeah. So if Joe Biden thought, I'll get the decisive Indian American vote by putting Kamala Harris on, what a waste of a pick.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I mean, yeah, we're a pretty big group, but yeah, I think if he was going to think that way strategically, it would be a little different. Maybe he thought, I can get the African American vote and the Indian vote. Boom.
A twofer.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna throw this out there, and I don't think I've ever said this to you. I don't think people, except for Indian Americans, really realize that Kamala Harris is Indian American. I think most people just view her as a black woman, and so that's the equation. What do you think?
I told you the first time I ever heard of Kamala Harris, I figured she was part Indian because of her name. I assumed, because usually, I mean, I'm going on stereotypes here and generalizing here, but A lot of African Americans, if they don't have the typical Anglo-Saxon name, the ethnic names they do have are Muslim, and that was a very Indian Hindu name. So I'm like, God, she must have some sort of Indian connection. So that's what I
Rummana,
thought when I heard her name.
I'm going to tell you that Jews do the same thing.
Yeah.
They're like, I think this person may be Jewish. I think that, you know, I think this person may be Jewish. Like, and then you discover like when Jews discovered that Drake was Jewish.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about young Jews. I'm talking about old Jews.
Yeah.
He's Jewish.
I know.
Drake's a rapper, ladies and gentlemen. For my
I know
older
who he is.
listeners.
He
No,
was
I know
on the-
you know who he is, but
He was on the new Degrassi Junior High. I'm sure you watched that too.
no, I did not. Dennis is dying. I missed that. I missed the whole Drake phenomenon. I just know that, you know, his mother's Jewish. He's Jewish. He was bar mitzvahed. And Jews everywhere. Did you know Drake's Jewish? There's a rapper Jewish.
Yeah, Muslims do that. Like, we go crazy, and then we do that with Indian people too. Like, because I'm Indian, but like, yeah, we do that. Muslims do that too.
Yeah.
Indians.
And black people do it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like whenever there's this go back in time, a black person finally made it into a primetime show, like Julia or something like that. That black people would. So yeah, every ethnic group I think does that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's enough to get them to vote for someone.
Oh, I agree.
If that person is.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think everybody, everybody that I know that's Indian was, well, they're like, wow, she's part Indian. And there's kind of like a pride in that sense that, someone that has our heritage is, nominated for the vice president. But it wasn't like they're not going to dissect who she is or aren't going to be critical of her and be like, oh, God, I got to go run out and just vote for this woman because she's Indian.
Yeah.
Or part Indian.
Absolutely. I don't think that's going on. All right. Now, I took special delight with this, as did Dennis. Bill Burr. I started doing my Bill Burr imitation. Was on Saturday Night Live. He's a comedian. He's been around for a long, long time. Saturday Night Live, clearly had Chris Rock the first week. They said, all right, let's get a white comedian on, little, Trump-esque like. So they put Bill Burr on. And just... It's like our world, our country is so segregated and separated into those little outlets. And so like a whole segment, Rummana, of white liberals, they'd never heard of Bill Burr before. And all of a sudden they see him and he gets up there and he does his bit and they're like offended and angry and they're, who is this guy? And I thought it was pretty funny.
It was just white liberals. People of color who are liberals thought it was pretty funny. I can tell you that. They didn't agree with the cancel culture segment, but they liked the rest of the bit that he did.
All right. I don't think we could play that bit because Saturday Night Live would sue us, But could you just tell folks a little bit what the bit went?
I'll talk a little bit about what he did. So he started off talking about how he didn't agree with cancel culture and talked about, he kind of pointed out to how John Wayne, his name is John Wayne, right?
Yes, you talk about John Wayne, the actor.
Yeah. I almost said John. I almost said John Wayne Gacy, and I'm like, no, John.
No, God, please.
So John, he just started making fun of people and how John, everybody just realized that John Wayne was a racist, and people pointing out to his like 1970-ish Playboy interview where I think he used a lot of slurs. And he's like, the guy was born in 1907. That's just the way people thought. And so he was kind of going off on cancel culture. Then he went on to the best bit where made everybody laugh is about how white women try to hijack the post-George Floyd discrimination movement and, trying to go after white men. And he's just kind of like, he makes a joke about how white women managed to, it was about people of color for about 8 seconds. And then white women, crossed over with their Gucci, boots on the other side and put themselves at the front of the line trying to rip on white men. And he's just basically told them, he's like, you need to sit down and shut up like the rest of us white men. And he basically said that you've been going along with this, the white toxic male masculinity bit for a long time. So I think a lot of people of color did appreciate that. And then he ended it with the Black History Month and how the Gay Pride Month is like in June or May or June. And, and then Chris Rock has a bit too. Chris Rock has always had this bit about how Black History Month is the shortest month of the year. But Bill Burr took it one step further and said, it's the month they give Black History Month
in February when everybody's like freezing cold outside. And I don't know. I know, Ben, you said that a lot of white liberals were mad at his bit.
Oh, they're
but
mad.
A lot of people of color were laughing, and they said that everything that he said was totally true. Maybe we didn't agree with his cancel culture comments, and
that cancel culture comments. They're so dumb when those. Come on, comedians, get over it.
Yeah.
People criticize you. I get criticized. See me whining and crying. But by the way, I got to give a shout out to Bab. He's a listener of ours. He put it on. I'll just read it. He actually put it on my Facebook page. So I'll just read you the line that you're pretty good. Your recollection. He goes, I've got to tell you, the way white women somehow hijacked the woke movement. Generals around the world should be analyzing this. The woke movement was supposed to be about people of color not getting opportunities, finally making that happen. And it was about that for about 8 seconds. And then somehow white women swung their Gucci booted feet over the fence of oppression. And the way Burr does it, Gucci foot, and stuck themselves at the front of the line, trashing white guys. The nerve of you white women, he added. Let's go back in history here. You guys stood by us toxic white males through centuries of our crimes against humanity. You rolled around in the blood, money, and occasionally when you wanted to sneak off and hook up with a black dude, if you got caught, you said it was non-consensual. That's what you did. So why don't you shut up, sit down next to me, and take your talking to? Bill Burr. Wow.
Yeah. And I admit I didn't know who he was. I just saw that he was trending on Twitter, and it said Bill Burr, white women. Then it said, Bill Burr, and then SNL, and then there's all these articles that came out too about the 7-minute monologue. And then a friend sent me the text and it goes, oh, haha, look what he says about white women. So that's I admit I discovered him. And one thing about Bill Burr that a lot of people of color were pointing out is that he's married to a black woman. So she's probably told him this stuff too. I'm sure she's kind of weighed in on a lot of topics as well.
And I'm sure he ran it by her. Before he did the bit.
He says he runs a lot of things by her. I was reading an article about her.
Bill Burr goes back, by the way, Bill Burr, Dennis and I get a big kick out of this, was on the Dave Chappelle show. You go back and look at a lot of those old bits. There's Bill Burr.
I had no idea. Okay, yeah, I used to watch that show. And he was also on Breaking Bad, I found out. But he played a dramatic role, and I'm trying to figure out who he was. But he was in Breaking Bad as well.
Yeah, so he's been around for a while, but he just finally annoyed his way into. Liberals are very concerned about it. Oh, white liberals, calm down. It's not the end of the world, okay? Life goes on. People can tweak you. It's okay. Bill Burr, his bit. More homework I sent to Rummana. I urge everybody. His 5-minute takedown of Steve Jobs and Apple and the whole culture of just utter obsession and love that people have for their cell phones. Rummana is so right on. I love that. I send that to people. I sent it to you, right? Did you get a chance to watch it?
You did. I did. You sent it to me while I was on my run, so I stopped and I watched it.
I love it. I urge everybody to check it out. Just Google Bill Burr and Steve Jobs. All right. Before we leave for the day, Rummana's recommendations. I got a bunch of recommendations for you, but why don't you tell me what you got for me?
Well, I'm watching it's this Netflix series. It's called Haunting of Bly Manor. And it basically is a follow-up to the Haunting of Hill House, which was loosely based on a Shirley Jackson short story, or a novel, I should say. And then this season it's called The Haunting of Bly Manor, and this is a series loosely based on a Henry James novella. So The Turning of the Screw. So I'm watching it. It's Halloween. I'm almost Halloween. So I'm trying to get into the spooky, scary theme. Although I don't think it's that spooky. It's more creepy. So I enjoyed. I read The Haunting of Hill House before I watched the series last year. It's completely different. But I just watched it. I thought it was entertaining enough, so I'm just watching the second part. No, I haven't watched Pose. And then the second thing I was going to recommend, I know you noticed that your Sun Times is all pink today, is if you can do a breast cancer walk for anyone, or I know it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's just something I know a lot of women are into it, and some men too, but I'm doing a walk tomorrow. So anything you can do to support. I had a friend who's a survivor. She was going through radiation during the pandemic, and she's in remission right now. So just in dedication of her, and if you know anybody who has had breast cancer, it's always a good thing to do.
Absolutely, with you 100%. I did make a few teasing remarks about the pink sometimes. Guys, you could have just on the front page, pink. You may have to make me, but whatever. Just teasing my bright one. I love you, bright one. Radha Blank is her name, Rummana, and she's brilliant. I cannot recommend this movie enough. It's on Netflix. It's called The 40-Year-Old Version, Version. I don't want to talk too much about it, give too much of it away, because your next homework assignment is to watch it, so maybe we can have a whole discussion on it next week. But I just found it so funny in a sardonic way and uplifting, curiously enough. And it's about a woman who's approaching the age of 40. She's having sort of a crisis of her career. She's a stand-up comedian. She's a dramatist. It's not really working out the way she wants it to, and she tries to revive it by doing rap. I just loved it. So I urge you to watch it. She's closer to you in generation than she is to me, but I really, I could just, I don't know, some ways she spoke to me. So her name is Radha Blank, Blank. I urge. That's my one. And tonight I'll be watching the Chicago 7, which breaks on Netflix tonight. You gonna watch that as well?
I do want to watch that. I think it's interesting. I think I told you this, but when I was in high school, I could have sworn I saw a teacher of mine showed us on video like it was a dramatized version of what happened, the trial itself, and it was like a play. But he had a VHS. So I just remember watching it. So I know people say it's the first time that there's ever been some sort of, movie or TV show based on this, but I feel like there has been, because I remember learning about it when I was in high school.
Well, yeah, there was. Okay, so the Chicago 7 trial was a conspiracy trial. The U.S. government cooked up charges of conspiracy against 7 anti-war activists who had been organizing against the Democratic Convention that was held in Chicago in 1968, got their heads bashed in by Chicago police. But somehow or other, it was the hippies that got put on trial with these accusations of conspiring to cross state lines to incite riots. The trial was a travesty. The judge, Julius Hoffman, was lined up with the feds from the get-go. Horrifically unfair. He was blatantly unfair. And the transcripts, the literal transcripts of the trial, Rummana, were turned into a book, and then later there was a play made out of the transcripts, and there was probably a movie that I missed that high school kids got to see. It was literally the transcripts so that you could see how unfair Hoffman was, but then you could also see how the hippies played into it by needling him and maligning him.
I remember seeing that in this videotape that we watched. They were kind of like, I don't want to say they were making fun of everything, but I just remember they were acting out, and it was like, when you're 17, 18 years old, you're laughing at the whole thing.
Yeah. They mocked it, and the leader of the 7,
Abby Hoffman.
Abby Hoffman is played by Sacha Baron Cohen, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Sacha Baron Cohen plays Abby Hoffman. So I'm looking forward to that great eagerness, and just tell everybody Sergio Mims will be coming on. We'll be talking about it. We're doing a whole thing on Chicago 7. So I'm looking forward to it.
Is it coming out tonight?
Yes, tonight's the night on Netflix.
Well,
it was in the movie theaters, but I'm still scared. I gotta admit, Rummana, I love going to movies, but I'm still not going to movies, the actual theaters. So I have to watch these movies on my boob tube. Anyway, Rummana, Hussain, stay safe and sound. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll talk to you next week. All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That's the great Rummana Hussain every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show, Chicago Sun-Times editor columnist. D, what updates you got for me?
Well, we got a few updates here, but before we get to those, Ben, you said you wanted to talk about the email we received from Steve, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I completely forgot that, D. Steve, thank you very much for writing this email. And it's regards to the David Ferris interview I did with David Ferris, a political science professor from Roosevelt University. And Steve writes, quote, while it would only be a slight exaggeration to say that I live for Ben and David's rants. They're not rants. They're well thought out riffs. But whatever, rants is good too. About the timidity of Democrats, as a supporter of the Fair Tax Amendment, I must respectfully dissent for both of your comments on the fair tax on the other day's special broadcast. Ben, you wondered about fair tax supporters' supposed bad messaging on the effects of passage, chalking it up as yet another example of Democratic timidity. Why, you wondered, did Democrats merely talk about raising taxes on the rich and not take the obvious to you next step of promising tax reductions for the next rich? The answer is that such a promise would be a lie, in quotes. The truth of the matter is that Illinois' fiscal picture is so screwed up that the fair tax can only make a small contribution to making things right again. Raising taxes on the wealthy would not only fill a part of the gap, and no reductions for the rest of us are possible even with the fair tax. To promise such a reduction and not grant them would merely set the table for future Republican counterattacks, and the fair tax amendment would set a ratio between the highest and lowest tax rates of 8 to 5. You might say a higher rate would have been more desirable, but they're having a hard enough time getting this rate structure passed. No, the fair tax is only designed to overcome the absurd Constitution handcuffs on the legislator that forbid any progressive income taxation. That's all it is. Excellent letter, Steve. I basically agree with everything you say, to which I say this. And I actually made this point stronger in my column. You're playing fair. You're playing as though this is an honest playing field. And I'm merely saying that those tactics have failed time and time again. That if you play fair as a Democrat, if you tell the truth as a Democrat, if you're honest at voters as a Democrat, you're repaid with out and out lies. You're playing by the rules. They're not playing by the rules. Just look at that debate, that first debate. Donald Trump, from the minute that debate began, broke every rule that he agreed to for the debate. So if Donald Trump weren't in the middle of a pandemic, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, he'd be rewarded for that behavior. So I hear what you're saying. And I struggle with this all the time. You want to play by the rules and be fair and accurate, and the other side abides by no rules. So my point is this. If Democrats played the game like Republicans, they wouldn't call it a fair tax. They would call it a tax cut. Vote to cut your taxes. And you can make the argument, Steve, you can make the argument that it is effectively a tax cut because your taxes wouldn't be higher. Your taxes would be lower than what they would have been without it. And that's the reality. That is point blank the reality. If the fair tax goes down, middle-class people, working-class people, and poor people will be paying more in taxes because there will not be higher rates on the well-to-do. And that's why the Kenny G's of the world, the Ken Griffiths of the world are pouring so much money into it because they're going to save money in the back end. So while your point is a good one, that in a fair society, in a society where we all play by the rules, in a society where we respected truth, you'd be as truthful as you can. But right now we're in a society where one group is benefited by lying right in the face of people. They tell you a tax cut on the wealthiest people is actually a tax cut for everyone. And we all know that's not true. So sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. That's all I'm saying. But excellent letter from Steve, and thank you for taking the time to write it. And thank you for listening to David Ferris and myself.
Absolutely,
ahead,
Steve. Thank you so much for the email, but I think I know someone who may disagree with you.
Springfield politicians, they promise they won't tax retirement income if their constitutional amendment passes, but their measure lets them increase income taxes on every group of taxpayers, including retirees.
See, Steve, that's my point. They just made that up. You know what I mean? They just made that up. They dragged Phyllis out there. Here, Phyllis, read this script. You got it, boss. Just made up. It's got nothing to do with retirement. They don't even mention retirement. Go ahead, Phyllis. I'll say whatever you say, boss. Just give me the script.
By the way, yes, that is a brand new reoccurring character on the Ben Joravsky Show, Phyllis.
Springfield politics.
Okay, Phil, that's enough.
Phil's just like, give me that microphone.
All right, here. This just came in. Shout out to the meanest Illinois political bulldog in the yard, Capital Facts' own Rich Miller. Okay, get him on the leash. It says here, Governor J.B. Pritzker announced today that Illinois' ban on evictions will be extended until November 22nd as state officials continue to send grants to Illinois residents struggling to make ends meet. Pritzker has extended the ban on evictions 4 times since he lifted the stay-at-home order at the end of May, when the state began to make significant progress in slowing the spread of the coronavirus. The state's ban on evictions will stretch into its 7-month with the governor's order. State officials are in the process of notifying those who won grants from a lottery used to distribute more than $300 million in help to landlords and tenants struggling to make ends meet. Funds began to flow on Thursday to those who applied for assistance paying their rent and mortgage and should be completed by November 10th. This is according to officials with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So, hey, good news on that, huh?
Yeah, it is good news. And by the way, when I was listening to you read that, D, I was thinking of Jimmy Dore. I remember I talked about him yesterday, how Jimmy Dore went on
Tucker,
the Tuckster, to make a direct appeal.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore hair.
Jimmy Dore went on, let that hair get a little gray. I like that, Jimmy. Don't dye it. Be you. All right. Jimmy Dore went on to Tucker Carlson's show to make a direct appeal to Donald Trump to try to increase the stimulus. It kind of worked. I had to tell you this, D. I meant to tell you this at our pre-show meeting, but I got distracted at our pre-show meeting. We have donuts and coffee at that pre-show meeting.
Oh, no, we do not.
We do not.
I wish.
No donuts, no coffee.
Did Trump give him a shout out, mess his name up? I'd like to thank Timmy Moore.
He didn't give him a shout out, but he started talking. He was babbling. I forget where, on Fox or something, about there should be more stimulus. I'm like, oh my God. Of course, there was no follow up to this, or at least there hasn't been yet. And it could just be the steroids speaking. Lord knows they're pumping so many drugs into Donald Trump these days. You don't know if it's the steroid speaking or whatever drug could be speaking, or he'd just be out of his mind. But all of a sudden he started going, there should be more. They should get more money. I'm like, oh my God. He heard that. He heard Jimmy Dore say that. And it sunk in. It pierced the brain.
Oh. He flip-flopped?
No, that's a different sound.
Oh.
Flip-flop is piercing the brain is
oh, so there's boing and doing. Okay.
Yes. Come on, get it right.
So sorry.
Vilma, hold on. Vilma, could you help him out a little bit?
Vilma is the other reoccurring character on the program, the 90-year-old production wizard that helps me out on the Ben Joravsky show.
And I tested very positively in another sense. So this morning, I tested positively toward negative, right? So no, I tested perfectly this morning.
Oh, God.
Meaning I tested negative.
What the hell are you talking about?
It's the steroids, all right? No, that's actually before the steroids, so maybe that was just reefer.
All right.
Who knows? Anyway, Jimmy Dore, keep fighting, Jimmy. Go back on Tucker Carlson.
All right, before we roll out of here, we have one last 2020 Illinois general election candidate update.
This is a 2020 Illinois general election candidate update.
Great work, Vilma, on that one. All right, like I said here earlier in the program, we have not one, not two, but 3, count them 3, political campaign ads to play from the 13th Congressional District candidate, second time's a charm, the Democrat, Betsy Dirksen Londrigan. All right, so I have the press releases for these ads here. I'll read a bit of the press release, and then we will play the ads. All right, it says here, today, Betsy Dirksen Londrigan's campaign released 3 new television ads highlighting the contrast between Dirksen Londrigan's campaign focused on access to qualify, access to, I cannot read today, between Dirksen Londrigan's campaign focused on access to quality, affordable health care, beating this pandemic and rebuilding our economy, and Congressman Rodney Davis's failure to support Central Illinois families. The 30-second ads will air in the Champaign, Springfield, Decatur, and St. Louis media markets as part of a district-wide buy that includes broadcast, cable, and digital platforms. I forgot to mention, I went to downstate Illinois over the weekend, and these poor people downstate, they're right by Missouri. So not only do they get the Illinois local campaign ads, they also get the Missouri campaign ads. I kept seeing Betsy Londrigan is horrible. And then I would see this person in Missouri is horrible. She didn't wear a mask. Oh, my God. There's just back and forth both states. Good Lord, I feel sorry for all those people. But we have 3 ads here. So let's start it off right now with our first ad. I believe this ad is titled Leader.
Betsy Dirksen Londrigan, and I approve this message.
What Betsy Londrigan went through with her son in the ICU for weeks made her the leader on healthcare that she is today. But Rodney Davis, he's not being honest on healthcare. Davis says he'd never vote for anything that would hurt his own family. That's easy to say if you have access to a gold-plated congressional healthcare plan. He voted 11 times to gut protections for pre-existing conditions for everyone else. Rodney Davis is in it for himself.
Ooh, spicy.
I like that. By the way, that's a relatively normal human voice. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that's up your alley right there.
Yeah, it wasn't like...
Well, none of them sound like that, but I know what you mean.
Be frank. It was like a normal guy. So good
Hey,
for
I'm just
you,
a normal
Betsy.
guy, man. You know, I just go to 7-Eleven every day, get a soda. Hey, you know, Londrigan's cool.
Yeah, I keep that an A.
All right. We do stars, but sure, an A.
All right. What's the top stars? I forgot. 4 or 5? 5.
There we go. There we go. All right. On to ad number 2. This ad is titled Problem.
I'm Betsy Dirksen Londrigan,
Hi.
and I approve this message.
The pandemic devastated our family business overnight. The PPP loan program was supposed to be a lifeline for small businesses, but we got the runaround while political insiders got the money first and funds ran out. Rodney Davis's family got to the front of the line for $1 million payout, and he voted to keep it secret, while businesses like ours suffered. Rodney Davis is in it for himself.
Oh, we have a theme here.
Yeah, Rodney Davis is in it for himself. I didn't know that, by the way. I've not... Obviously, confession time. I should never confess to anything. I should act like, I know everything.
Yeah, that's why you would be a crappy politician.
I know everything. Yeah, I know. I'd be like, they'd ask me to debate a question. I go, I don't know. I don't know about that. I never heard of that before. And they go, how could you not know that?
And your campaign staff's like, come on, man, lie.
Yeah, that was funny. Rummana, like, she goes, Indian Americans are the second largest group of immigrants in the country. I go, who's number 1? She goes, well, obviously you didn't read the homework that you gave me. No, I read it. I did, I swear. I just didn't see that in there. Anyway, I didn't. I'm gonna look into that about getting the $1 million. That's like DB getting all that money that the farm aid.
Now, when you say DB, who are you talking about there?
Big feller, downstate Illinois, Clay County's own, Darren Bailey, soon to be state senator, now state rep. He's the face of the Republican Party these days. He doesn't wear a mask. He's not afraid. He'll go out there and spread COVID, give it to everybody. DB for state senate. Yeah, I'm Darren Bailey, and I approve this ad. Here you go. Here's the ad. When liberals up in Chicago are worried about COVID and wearing a mask, DB didn't wear a mask. DB went and he sneezed in their faces. COVID's for cowards. Hi, I'm DB, and I approve this ad.
Dang,
there you go.
We got to make some Darren Bailey ads.
Darren Bailey, who is going to feed them hogs?
All right, we got one more ad to play here from Betsy Dirksen Londrigan. The third ad is titled Back.
This is what the coronavirus has done to our economy. I'm Betsy Dirksen Londrigan. It's going to take a lot of work, but we can bring our cities and towns back. It starts by beating this virus with access to quality, affordable health care for everyone, lower premiums and prescription prices, rebuilding manufacturing here at home, job training programs, and help for local small businesses to create jobs. I approve this message because this is how we get Illinois open for business again.
Mm-hmm. Get open for business again. That's the positive message, D. I know nothing. Okay, I'm no David Axelrod. I never ran a campaign.
Oh, who is?
Yeah, I know there's only one DEA. I always, the jaded, cynical person that I am, after all these years covering Chicago politics, I thought negativity's what works. She's going a little positive there. So good luck with that one. I think the negative things probably get you a little farther in life, but good to be positive, D.
It is good to be positive. And that was a 2020 Illinois general election candidate update.
That was a 2020 Illinois general election candidate update.
Hey now. All right, everybody, we're about to ride out here for the weekend, but remember, you can download this weekend's Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast on Saturday. A city council synopsis with Dave Glowatz covering the October 7th city council meeting. On Sunday, gardening guru and what?
Gardening guru. No, I could be so mad. I am an environmentalist, Dennis.
And environmentalist Mike Novak. He's going to be talking about the latest going on with his show, The Mike Novak Show, and so much more. And finally, on Monday, the long-awaited return of our favorite grassroots political activist, the one, the only, Amisha Patel of Grassroots Collaborative. All of these will be available by 5 a.m. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. Send us an email like Steve did, all right? BennyJShow@gmail.com. BENNY, the letter J, show @gmail.com. And, hey, leave us a voicemail over the weekend. If you're bored, got nothing going on, like call these two weirdos up, give them a voicemail. Do it. We will play it. I mean, more than likely, if you don't say anything insane. 708-658-4788. That number again, 708-658-4788. Hope you all have a great weekend.
Yes, indeed. I want to thank Rummana Hussain for the Sun-Times. Great job as always. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride of Joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible. And as Rummana will tell you, back home in Alton, they call him Dr. Doobie. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
And I tested very positively in another sense. So this morning, I tested positively toward negative, right? So no, I tested perfectly this morning. Meaning I tested